Don't become a fire lookout in Montana. In the early 1980s, I was drifting across the country, picking up odd jobs here and there. I have a lot of stories to tell, but the worst story is about the time I spent as a forest fire lookout in Montana. I'm not going to give too many specifics of where this took place, and the names have been changed out of respect and protection for those who were involved and able to move on. I haven't been so lucky, but it's been long enough, and I need to get this off my chest. Working as a lookout is fairly boring even if you love the outdoors and being alone. A person could go stir crazy after a week, and some did. The turnover rate for lookouts was actually pretty high back then. The one thing that helped combat this was the radio. We had two. One long-range radio for calling items in and giving our check-in report to dispatch, and one short-range radio that let us talk to other lookouts in our area. We kept logs of most things, which makes the writing of this story fairly easy, but the conversations will be mostly from memory, so I'll be as accurate as that allows. It was late in the season, the mornings were becoming chilly, and I woke with a sore throat. After making some tea on the stove, I started a fire in the heater and sat down to enjoy my view. I could see for miles and could just about make out another tower across the valley. Heavy fog played between the pines, which I hoped would burn off quickly as it made picking out smoke a lot harder. Hope you're not sleeping in again. The radio squawked. I reached over and picked it up. Nah, I'm awake, Roy. Getting cold up here, though. Yeah, it's gonna get worse, too. Hope you brought some Long Johns. Should be able to survive another week. How's that ankle? The radio played static as he blew out a breath. Still hurts like a bitch, but I'll survive. The trek for water is gonna suck something terrible, though. I told you to call it in. You're gonna do more damage to it. Roy had twisted his ankle the day before while making the walk to the outhouse. We teased him relentlessly about it. Nah, it'll be fine. Ain't the first time someone messed up their ankle. Besides, if I give it a few days, it'll be good as new. Yeah, I doubt you'll stay off it for that long. Nah. Besides, I need to check things out in the woods before our time is up here. Check things? What kind of things? Just notice some strangeness, and I want to know what's causing. Ain't nothing to worry about. Probably just me seeing things again. Anyway, I'm gonna get my jugs together. You got watch? Yeah, nowhere to be but here. I said and sat back in my chair and listened to static. Once in a while, conversations from other stations would bleed in, but most of it was A little before 4:30, the evening check-ins started over the radio. There were the normal voices, save for one. Roy didn't check in. Station 525, check in please. I grabbed the short-range radio and called for him. No answer. I cursed. Hey, station number 51 scene here. I spoke to Roy this morning. He was going out to get water. With that messed up leg of his? Jesus Christ, what an idiot. Rose said in her usual dour voice. She was on the other side of Roy, and apparently they did not get along. Bet he's laying out there, lame as a cow. Shit, Kurt said. He was the dispatcher on that night. Fuck, who's closest to his tower again? Hell no. Ain't no way I'm going out looking for him. He's probably sleeping somewhere, Rose said. I'll do it. I said inside as I started to get on my boots. You're a cliffside from him, Kurt said. Yeah, and I've made the trek back in the beginning of summer. Remember? When we had issues with the radios during that storm and lighting strike? This will be a cakewalk in comparison. Fuck, Rose. Can you please do it? I don't need another dipshit death on my hands. You're an ass, Kurt, I said. Truth hurts. I lost like 6 years of my life when you made that trek. She's closer. God damn it, you babies. Fine, if I get mauled by a bear, I'm gonna haunt both your asses. I chuckled. like a bear would stick around as you bitched about it getting blood on your shirt. "Ha ha, fuck you," she said, and the radio went to static as I continued to get ready. The walk to Roy's Lookout wouldn't be easy, but I didn't trust Rose to actually go out and look. I grabbed my pack and the short-range radio and called in. Luckily, it was still light out until almost 8, which gave me a few hours. "I'm going down in the valley. We're off shift now, so shouldn't be a problem." "What the fuck you going in the valley for?" Kurt asked. "So I can hear if Rose gets mauled by a bear." "You're just full of jokes tonight, aren't you, Drifter?" I didn't respond, and after a few minutes she called in that she was going out looking. I left around the same time. It was a chilled evening, the kind that announced the coming of autumn. I dug my light jacket out of my pack and started down the trail. It took almost 2 hours to reach the halfway point between my and Roy's Lookout, because climbing down a cliffside, even when it's on an angle, takes some time. I sat down for a water break and pulled out the radio. "Anything yet, Rose?" I called and received static back in answer. Probably still too far away. 15 minutes and I was back on the trail. The sun was almost kissing the top of the trees when I reached the base of Roy's Lookout. I went up the steps, calling out his name as I went. When I reached the top, I found someone else already there, sitting in the chair at the desk. She was a slender woman with red hair tied in a dirty ponytail. The glare she gave me through the window told me exactly who she was. "You just get here?" I asked as I opened the door. The place was in shambles. She tossed a book she was holding and dropped her hands to her thighs with a slap. She cocked her head and narrowed her eyes at me. "Figured it was you, and that annoying voice of yours just confirmed it. What the fuck you doing here, Drifter? You mean to tell me I hiked my ass across sappy pines and poison ivy and you were coming anyway? You didn't answer when I radioed." I said and let my gaze travel the lookout. "What happened here?" "We had a party. You're late." It was my turn to glare. "I don't know. Shit was like this when I got here." "He's a slob. No surprise there." "Maybe, but this isn't because he's a slob. This place looks tossed." I went to the map in the center of the room and looked through the site of the Osborne. Like someone was looking for something. Like what? Not like there is anything important here. "No, but this is strange," I said and stepped away from the Osborne and motioned to it. "Check out where he was looking last." She moved over and looked through the site and then shrugged. He was looking toward my tower. "So? Why?" "I don't know, maybe he was going to come visit or some shit." She broke off and shook her head. "No, he ain't that stupid." "What?" "Kept saying he saw lights in the woods by me. But I ain't never seen any, and I was looking right where he told me to. He's gone nuts, man. Crazy train." "So? What? You think he made the hike on a busted ankle over there? What kind of lights was he seeing?" "I don't know." She sat down on the bed. "I don't know. He was getting antsy the last few nights, kept saying he was going to check it out himself since I wouldn't." I sat down at the desk and started to look through it. His radio is busted. "What?" I held up the broken receiver. Might be why he didn't call in. "So what? We got some idiots out here? Wouldn't be the first time. Joe, remember him? He told me stories about Hicks coming out here and messing with the fire lookouts." She leaned back on the bed. "But that was always the off-season." This is like she paused and cursed as she brought up her hand. There was a smudge of red across her palm. What the fuck, she repeated as she staggered away from the bed. "Why the fuck is there blood on the bed?" I rushed over and lifted the covers. There were 3 rags, each stained red. I looked back at Rose as she desperately tried to wipe it off on the floor, cursing the entire time. There wasn't that much. Could have easily come from a cut, or Roy wasn't being truthful about how badly he messed up his ankle. It's nothing. It's his goddamn blood. Probably gonna get AIDS or some shit. Fuck. She slapped her hand against the floor and dragged it across it again, leaving a long streak of red. Look, I'll go out and look for him. You head back before it gets dark, I said and looked out the windows. The sky was mostly clear with only clouds at the edge of the horizon. The moon would be bright enough to travel by. Nah, no way. If you get lost, I'm just gonna have to go looking again. I'd feel safer if you weren't following me, I said with a grin, and she gave me the finger and then dug into her shirt pocket. She removed a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. She lit one. Then you can follow me. I don't really care. We head back to my lookout, since that seems to be our best bet, and when we find him, I'm gonna kick the old kook in the nuts so hard he's gonna spit them out his mouth. I'm gonna need you to carry him out after that. I sighed. We go that way, and we're gonna have to spend the night in your lookout. I got an outhouse you two can sleep in. She blew out a puff of smoke with a grin. You know, I came out here to get away from shits like you two, was nice and quiet for a time. Then you two showed up, and were always gibbering on the radio like two lovers. Don't be jealous, I said as I held out my hand. She took it, and I hauled her to her feet. Shut up, or I'll shove you down the stairs. Ah, now you get why I didn't want you following me. She said nothing as she walked out the door, and I heard her stomp down the steps. It was going to be a fun hike. The shadows were long by the time Rose called a stop for a break. I could just make out her tower between the trees, but we were still a couple of miles out. She offered me some of her water once she had gulped down some. Thanks, got my own. I didn't poison it. That thought didn't even cross me mind, but now it did. I said as I got my water bottle out of my pack. She shrugged and leaned back against the tree and closed her eyes. She looked tired, her face smudged with dirt and sap. There was also something else off about her, but I couldn't quite place it, like she was holding back something. I stared at her, trying to figure out the reason it felt that way. Stop leering at me like I'm meat, she said, and I cocked a brow at her when she opened her eyes again. I could feel you. Sure thing. Why was Roy going on about lights in the woods? Probably because we're in the middle of nowhere with only Jenny's for power, so it's a bit strange. I don't know about you, but I ain't wasting fuel to fuck with Roy. But I didn't see no lights either. He's losing it. Told you that. She took a deep breath and then blew it out as she looked east and then sat up. Shit, what? Storm, she nodded over, and I looked to see thunderheads pushing through the once clear sky. Fucking Kurt. He didn't say a damn word about it. There weren't any storms on the radar when Kelly was on station. Well, unless we're going as nuts as Roy, I'd say we better hurry our asses inside before it hits. What about Roy? She stood and stretched. Look, what you want to do? We get caught in that storm, and there's a good chance we don't make it out. Look at the size of the bastard, it's almost biblical. Yeah, but do what you like, Drifter. But fuck you if you think I'm gonna go looking for some old guy in the middle of a storm. She started off down the trail, and I looked back at the storm. Thunder rumbled in the distance. We reached her tower, and from its clearing, we could see the storm rolling across the valley. Rain fell from it like sheets, obscuring the forest of pines in fog and lines. It was slow moving once it hit the valley, but that wasn't exactly a good thing. It would take up most of the night. I decided, and hated myself for it, that we'd look for Roy once it blew over. Rose argued for a few minutes, but let me into the tower after I pushed my way in. She snarled at me like some rabid dog, but said nothing more. We started to hunker down, boarding windows that we could, and securing the door. The storm hit like a sheer wind. The tower rocked and danced to the music of thunder and rain. The little light in the center of the room struggled to stay on, and Rose started to get out the lanterns. Fucking Roy, she said as she placed the last lantern down on her desk. Don't they do psych evaluations or some shit? Letting a crazy ass up here like him, what did he think the lights were? What? Why he care so much? What did he think they were? She shrugged. I dunno. Just was freaked about them. Why you care? Look out the window. I said and stood. When I first noticed them, I thought they were a reflection of the lightning. But they were growing brighter, becoming almost beams through the trees. Rose turned in her seat and then stood with a start. He's fucking with us, she said. Her voice had a slight tremble in it. That's gotta be it. He hooked up lights or some shit. In the middle of a storm? I said, and practically pressed my face against the glass. The lights were moving, far too quickly to be someone running the woods. You're seeing this, right? Don't make no sense. She turned and dug into the chest at the foot of her bed. I turned when I heard the cock of a shotgun. It's coming closer. What are you going to do with that? You don't know what's coming. I stalked over. What's coming? What are you talking about? Just trust me. We're going to need this. I looked back at the window. The light was moving through the trees, beams shining in every direction, and it was quickly making its way up the valley and toward us. I watched it shoot along the edge of the ridge and then dip down and up. In a flash, it darted up the hill the lookout was on, a ball of light that practically blinded. The tower rumbled harder than from any wind and tossed us on our asses and shook everything else to the floor. The shotgun in Rose's hand went off with a bang, and the light went out, leaving us in darkness. I sat up with a start and looked around in the dark. I couldn't make out anything, my eyes still trying to adjust. I reached back, and my hand landed. She groaned as I pulled on it, and I saw the movement as she sat up. Rain was pouring in through the windows, splashing us both. What the fuck was that? She said, her voice hoarse. Don't ask me. Jesus, there was a thump from somewhere below us, low and quiet. We both froze, and her hand found mine as I slowly stood. The thump came louder. A thump, and then silence. A thump, and then silence. Rosie A. gurgled voice called from below us. My veins went cold. Rosie A. hacking cough echoed up the stairs, and I felt Rose scramble for the shotgun. I went for one of the lanterns and turned it on. Who the hell is that? What the hell is going on? I said and flipped the light on as I turned to Rose. Her face was only a foot away, her eyes wide and her skin speckled with rain. Help me for the heel, the voice called, almost crying in a gurgling way. Roos that it sounds like Roy. I said as I went to one of the windows. That don't sound like fucking anyone. No, listen to how he's walking. Shit, it's gotta be him. I went to the door, but she slammed her body against it. What, you ain't going out there? He needs our help. She shook her head. That ain't Roy. What? She swallowed hard and wiped at her face. Okay, look, just listen to me. Rose, you better start making sense real soon. She shoved me back with the gun. I've seen this before. Seen what? 2 years ago, I was out here and some idiot camper got lost. His friends said there were lights and shit in the woods the night he disappeared. We were pulled in to help look, and we found him. Still waiting for sense. She snarled. He weren't the same anymore. Barely alive, tubes moved his blood, eyes gouged out. We thought he attacked the ranger that was with us, tore her to shreds before we could do a thing. That ain't Roy down there. What are you saying happened to him? She shook her head. I don't know. We don't know. We thought some serial killer was about the woods, but no one would talk about. Not the sheriff or the doc that looked at him. People were zipped, and I was told not to say a word about it to anyone. So the lights I saw M, and I ignored them just like I told Roy to. She sniffed and wiped at her nose. But he couldn't let it be. Kept talking on the radio to me about kept poking at what happened. I didn't think it was the same, but now. Lightning lit a silhouette outside the windows. It was wet and sick-looking, like a person who was about to keel over at any moment. Rose turned to it, and the silhouette lumbered toward the door and smashed it open. It gave a gurgling scream for Rose, and then my ears went ringing from the blast of the shotgun. It didn't go down. She fired again. It stumbled, but still made its way toward us. She fired once more, and the blood splattered us as the silhouette finally dropped down at our feet. It was too dark to see much of anything, even with the lantern. But I saw the jacket the silhouette wore. I remembered it from when I first arrived at dispatch and met a gray-bearded man who was gearing up to head for his lookout. Roy Morning found us both wide awake and staring at the body before us. It was almost like a horror show as the light crept through the windows, illuminating the floor and the body at our feet. It was Roy, but it wasn't Roy. Large tube things traveled down his neck, the ribs showing under the red and white skin. His jaw was slack, teeth missing, and his tongue was twice the normal size, sticking out almost like a dog's. His clothes were torn, rags basically in most places. He was bald, and his beard was gone, shaved smooth. I couldn't take my eyes from him. Morning check-in. Let's hear it, guys and gals. You all alive after that storm? The radio squawked, and Rose and I looked at each other. It was Kelly. Station 516 and 532 need a check-in from you big time. Kurt has been pissing his pants since last night. Give the lad a break. What do we tell them? She asked and looked over to me, her eyes red and bruised. I mean, what do I don't know? Who told you not to tell anyone about the lights? Government types? I don't know. They just made me sign a bunch of papers and shit. Told me it was a serial killer working in the woods like we had thought. But I stood slowly and stepped over Roy's body. I tried to not step in his blood, but it covered the floor. I picked up the receiver and after a deep breath answered. This is station 532. I'm here with Rose. Storm cut me off last night. Well, damn, kiddo. We thought you were lost too. Rose didn't try to shoot you when you came over? I laughed a little. It was forced. Nah. She's been a good host. Didn't even make me stay in the outhouse. Good to hear. You find anything about Roy? He didn't make it. Shit, yeah. Storm hit before I could call it in. His body, I looked down at the corpse and shivered. It was a bear attack. Wasn't much left. You gotta be kidding me. Shit, well, at least we got people here already to help. People? I asked and looked over to Rose. She sat up, the gun clutched to her chest. Yeah, Storm did a lot of damage last night. We got some government helpers here. They were wanting to head up toward Roy's place as soon as they heard he was missing, but I wanted to get in touch with you two. Government? I said, my brain trying to keep up. Yeah, you know, like rangers and shit. They're heading your way now, so you two just sit tight, and once you show them where Roy is, we'll get you out of there. Sounds good. Thanks. I put the radio down and looked at Rose, and then at the body. Fuck, they come here and it's the same shit. I've seen it twice now. They ain't just gonna let me walk out. No way. It was a bear attack. I said and looked up. That ain't no bear, she said as she got to her feet. It was a bear attack and there was nothing left. I bent down and started to drag Roy's body outside. I then tossed him over the rail. My stomach flipped at the sound his body made when it hit the ground. This won't work, Drifter. It's Sean. I said and picked up my pack. My name, it's Sean. You don't have to come. I can handle it. No, I'll come. We spent the morning making a scene, scattering Roy's clothes in the forest. We burned his body and buried what was left. It took time, and when a group of men and women showed up at the head of the trail, Rose and I were wiped out at the bottom of the steps sharing a cigarette. It was a bear attack. I showed them where, and while the more strict of those in the group seemed dubious, we were led out of the forest. They asked us about if we'd seen anything strange, any lights. We laughed, told them it was the middle of the forest. Where would lights come from? Rose and I have kept in touch over the years. She actually went back out a few times, but never saw the lights again. I've seen them twice now, never met anyone again. But sometimes I wonder if they're following me, whoever or whatever they are.